Hello. So, I was reading, as I generally do, various articles that get sent to me, or I go and look to explore, because keeping up to date is really quite important to make sure that we're not missing out anything for yourselves. And an article came up from um, a magazine that or a subscription site I look at to keep myself updated, and it says, after the autism diagnosis, what happens next? And obviously this is a lot of questions. People say, well, I've got a diagnosis, but what happens next? But this is going to be slightly of a different look at that question. So we spend so much time talking about getting the diagnosis, the waiting list, the forms, the assessments, school meetings, the fight to be heard. Parents often spend years trying to get someone to listen to them. And then eventually you get the diagnosis. You walk out of the appointment, you sit in the car, and you think, right, we finally have the answer. But here's the thing. For many autistic children, teenagers, young adults, this is not the end of the journey. It's actually the beginning. Because now comes the next question. What does being autistic mean for me? And that's what I want to explore today. This conversation is influenced by the research and also work from Emma Hines, Professor Tony Atwood, and Michelle Garnett, who speak a lot about identity, understanding autism, and supporting autistic young people. The moment things start to make sense, many parents over the years describe this incredible moment after diagnosis. So we've had a lot of parents that come in looking for diagnosis for the children. And when we do the workshops, there's almost a sudden light bulb moment. You can see the parents' eyes light up. You can then see the mouth and the jaw drop, and they go, "You're describing my childhood." It's incredible. And so when they get their diagnosis, there's a parent, they join the dots together. They begin saying things like, so that's why school tires me out. That's why I was considered naughty. That's why this happened. And our children are saying the same thing. So they say, so this is why school is so difficult. That's why I hate loud places. This is why I need routines. This is why I struggle when plans change. This is why I feel different. And sometimes the sentence that breaks parents emotionally: I thought I was just bad at things. How many parents or adults have told me that? I just thought I was naughty. I just thought I was bad at things. Then that one hits really hard, because it's a matter of, it's not me. It's my condition. Because many autistic children spend years trying to fit into systems that were never built for them. They often blame themselves. They think, everyone else manages, why can't I? Diagnosis can begin to change that story. Not because autism magically fixes everything, but because understanding replaces confusion. Instead of what's wrong with me becomes, this is how my brain works. And that is a huge, huge shift. Something I think we need to be careful of as parents, professionals and support workers is the message we give. Sometimes we swing far too far one way. We say, because we want to be positive. So we'll say, autism is amazing. It's your new superpower. And yes, they can be absolutely be strengths. Deep interest, creativity, different thinking, strong values, passion, focus. But if a child is sitting there exhausted, overwhelmed, anxious, struggling socially, having meltdowns all the time, all they hear is, autism is brilliant, they may think, then why am I finding this so hard? The other extreme is just as damaging. Only talking about problems, only talking about deficits, only talking about what they cannot do. That creates shame. The balance is you have strengths, you have challenges, you have needs. And all of those things can exist together. Tony Attwood, Michelle Garnett speak about this beautifully. Children need permission to understand both. And again, over the years, parents have told me, I thought my child would be relieved. Sometimes they are, but other times they're not. Some children cry, and others will say nothing, shrug and go back to gaming. They could ask 50, 100 questions. I've had children get really angry. Some are feeling embarrassed. Don't talk about it. I don't want to know about it. No, go away. Some move between all of the above emotions, and that's okay, especially if they have spent years being corrected, spent years masking, feeling different, being bullied, trying to fit in. Identity is not built in one conversation. You do not have to sit down once and say, you are autistic, and suddenly everything makes sense. This is usually a journey of many conversations, weeks, months, and sometimes years. So, if we think of the biggest gift diagnosis can bring, it's a belonging. Many autistic people grow up feeling they are standing outside looking in, watching everyone else seem to understand the rules, watching everyone else fit. Then suddenly they realise there are people like me. And that moment matters. The amount of children I have spoken to at PACT and at the LAS, when I say, can I talk to your child? I'll ask them questions and I'll say, do you feel like this? I bet you this goes on. And I say, how do you know? One child says, are you a magician? Can you read my mind? I'll say, no. I says, I know you're feeling like this because I've spoken to many other children who tell me this is what it feels like. And they can't believe it. And they have said, there are other people like me. It is huge. Because belonging reduces shame, belonging builds identity, and belonging says, I am not alone. That belonging might come from meeting autistic young people, listening to autistic adults, reading books, listening to podcasts, going to support groups, online communities, family conversations, and sometimes it simply comes out of hearing somebody say, I understand. The question changes. Instead of, why am I different? It becomes, this is who I am. And that is powerful. My daughter was having a conversation with one of her friends. And I got a, Dad, we need you. I thought something awful had happened. So then, I need you to listen to this, Dad, and tell me what you think. And my daughter was doing her friend's eyelashes at the time, so she was lying back, eyes closed, and they were just having this amazing conversation about their identities and everything else to themselves. And her friend said, so I'm having a conversation in my head, and the conversation I'm having in my head with arguments with different people, but I can see the people in front of me. Not physically see them, but their names are in front of me and I'm having the conversations with them. And it's sometimes insightful, sometimes I'm getting really angry. I said, all right, that's fine. I said, that's no problem. I said, it could be that you're neurodivergent. I don't know. You've not got a diagnosis of. But you have got there's certain things that you're talking about, certain ways you're coming across would make sense. Maybe if this, I said, but I then said, so I have a person I work with. His name is Andrew. And when he talks and whatever, he sees bubbles of words and there's loads of bubbles in front of him filled with words. And so when he's talking and he's bringing out a sentence, every time he says a word, the bubble bursts and new bubbles appear, and all of his conversations are done in bubbles. And she turned round to me and said, "Oh, so what I'm hearing is I'm normal. So other people think like this as well. Other people have different ways of seeing things and talking and everything else." I said, "Yeah." I said, "You'll be having conversations in your head, arguments in your head, but what you're doing is you're seeing the people in a imaginary way in front of you, because that's how you need to communicate some of the conversations you're having before you actually have the conversations. And yes, that is perfectly normal for you. You may not see the bubbles that Andrew sees, but that's perfectly normal for him. What is your normal?" And that just made her feel so good, because she came out with herself. So what I'm hearing is I'm normal. She is not. She was worried about, she was so different in that. But she came to the conclusion herself, and yeah, I'm going to carry on as I am. Brilliant. The conversations are really, really important. So let's talk to other people about it. Let's have these conversations. Then we get the next question. The one parent asks all the time, should we tell school? Well, a lot of parents are sort of screaming to schools and say, can you please get my child looked at? And the schools are potentially ignoring it. Or later, should my teenager or should my child tell their friends or the family? And honestly, there's no one single answer to that. As you know, I've talked about this in previous videos. Some people want to tell everyone to know. They just need it to know. Some people want nobody to know. And some change their minds every few months. And that's normal too. Emma Hines talks about something really important here: autonomy. Giving young people a voice to disclose. Instead of deciding everything for them, ask, who needs to know? Why do they need to know? What support are we hoping for? What language feels right? And what does this person need to understand so they can support you better? So depending on what the activity is, where you're going, is it going to be a job? Is it going to be, well, without them knowing this, I cannot get the support that I need. So what does this person I'm going to talk to need to understand so they can support me better? So disclosure is not about labels, it's about understanding what children really need after diagnosis. So if you're sitting here today supporting a child after diagnosis, this is what I want you to remember. They need you to know, or so that they do not need you to have every answer. That's important. You don't have to have all the answers. I certainly don't. I've been doing this for 20 years. I still don't know. But they do need conversations. They need curiosity. They need your patience. They need the validation. I've spoken about this many times. Validation is key. Permission to ask questions. Permission to struggle. Permission to feel proud. Permission to take their time. And because understanding autism is not a single event, it's a process. And they do not need to have to do it alone. They don't need to have to do it alone. Yeah, that makes sense. Now I'm talking about autism here, but to be honest, we could be talking about ADHD. We could be talking about dyslexia. We could be talking about dyspraxia. I'm sorry, I've just got cramp in my foot because of what I'm doing. So I've just moved oh goodness, see, my brain's gone again. The laptop slipped. So if you got a face of what's going on here, I'm sitting, because the location I had, I completely lost connections. I had to move location, and yeah, it was uncomfortable there. So apologies, I just got a bit of cramp. Anyway, you don't have to do it alone. Diagnosis is not the finish line. It's the beginning of understanding, the beginning of identity. the beginning of belonging. And maybe for some children, it's the first time they stop asking, what is wrong with me? And start saying, this is who I am. If you are supporting an autistic child or a teenager or a young adult, keep talking, keep listening, keep showing up, because these conversations matter more than you may actually know. And just to let you know, this particular video was influenced by the research that I read on identity and diagnosis disclosure by Emma Hines, Tony Atwood and Michelle Gallagher. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you later. Bye bye.